So I wanted to talk a little bit about the relationship between anxiety and control and how we can use that relationship to move us forward. So there's an inverse relationship between anxiety and control. So as anxiety goes up, control goes down, and vice versa. As control goes up, anxiety goes down. And that makes sense because when we're feeling more anxious, we're feeling less in control of our lives. And when we're feeling more in control of our lives, we're generally feeling less anxious. So this bar here represents what I call the control bar. And the control bar represents how in control of things we feel in our life at any given point in time. So anything below this line, represented by these X's, anything below this line, we feel in control of in our lives. And anything above that line, we feel out of control in our lives and at an increasing rate. So the things just out above that line, we feel are slightly outside of our control, and then moving up towards the things at the top, which feel way out of our control. And what our mind does is it groups certain things together, things that we might not necessarily associate with each other, different parts of our lives, different things going on in our lives. And it groups those together in these lines according to how in control we feel about something. So everything in this line, our mind will generally feel that they feel just outside of our control at that point in time. So what can we do? How can we use this concept, this inverse relationship between anxiety and control? Well, what we can do is we can obviously the aim is to increase control and thus move that control bar up, nudge it up a line. So what do we do? How can we go about doing that? So the first thing that we can do is we can think about something in that line, something that feels just outside of our control. And this doesn't necessarily have to be something that we see as being relevant to the challenges that we're facing, but just that one thing that feels that slightly out of our control, something that we've been ignoring for some time. So as examples, common things that clients mention in sessions are things like tidying up a drawer, clearing out a cupboard, taking something to the tip. I had a guy he had a stain on his bedroom carpet, which caught his eye every time he woke up in the morning, and it frustrated him for a moment. And then he walked past it and ignored it, and it'd been there for years. These kind of small little kind of things that just feel outside of our control. So what we then do is we make a plan to do that. And ideally, we go ahead and do that, complete that task. And what happens then is we nudge up that control bar psychologically. So we nudge up that control bar and automatically we feel that we have control over the other things in that line. And what we find out is that we find subconsciously it's so much easier to do those things. So almost naturally or by default, we start to do those things and tick those things off our to-do list. And research has proven that when we have these things in our minds, these things that we bury in our mind, these tasks that we don't do, they start to become intrusive thoughts and they start to add to that anxiety. And the inverse happens. So when we start to tick these things off our to-do list, when we move that control bar up, we reduce that anxiety, we remove these intrusive thoughts, and we start to gain momentum. And it becomes easier to nudge up to the next level because we start to familiarize ourselves with this process. So we look for that next thing just outside of the comfort zone and we nudge our control bar up again. It sounds like an oversimplified process, but it's really, really effective. So how can you make use of this concept? Well, the first thing that you can do is just start thinking about what is that one task that's been annoying you, that niggling little thing that you could easily do, but is you've been avoiding. Maybe it's tidying a cupboard. Maybe it's taking some weeds out of the garden. Maybe it's taking something to the tip. Maybe it's having a conversation with your accountant or someone, having a conversation with a colleague or something along those lines. Have a play around with that and let me know how you get on.